All right, so good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Teaching Kitchen here at New York-Presbyterian Hudson Valley Hospital. My name is Chef Emily, coordinator of our wonderful space here, and I'm so grateful to Ashley for inviting me to share a little bit of my special breakfast recipes with you all. Today's focus is supportive breakfast. This is more if you have recently had bariatric surgery, but it's also a healthy breakfast recipes that anybody can enjoy. I do realize we're doing this in the evening, so if you are cooking along, I guess it's breakfast for dinner for all of you. And
I love breakfast for dinner.
I love breakfast for dinner too. It's my favorite meal. So just a few Zoom ground rules before we begin. Just a reminder to everybody to keep yourselves muted throughout the presentation. If you have any questions or anything, feel free or comment, or if you can't see something, let us know. And feel free to let us know in the chat box, and Ashley will read me your questions and kind of interrupt me throughout the cooking to make sure that we address everything that you have in your, in mind for today. So with that, I think that's all the ground rules. Ashley, am I forgetting anything before we begin?
No, but someone did ask, will the recipes be emailed later? Were they already emailed to them? Or do we email them after? I can't remember.
So if you registered for this class today, within the last few hours, the recipes were sent out earlier this morning. But not to worry, I will make sure if you register for this class, at the end of the class, I'll be sending out a feedback survey. And then in addition to that, I'll attach the PDF of the recipes as well. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, great. All right, so with that, let's begin because we have a lot to do today. I think I overloaded us with recipes this time, but they're all very simple, and I wanted you guys to have a lot of variety. And then Ashley, if you would like to sort of interject and share at what point, at what stage these foods would be acceptable for our participants, that would be great as well.
Okay, and I'll do that after. I'll do that after each recipe. I'll kind of bring that in. And I just want to introduce myself.
I was just going to say, if you don't know Ashley Fleischauer, if you'd like to introduce yourself, Ashley.
So I am the bariatric manager at the hospital. A lot of you already know me. A lot of you have already had surgery with me. And I, if you haven't, welcome. If you're looking to have bariatric surgery, you can always contact me. But this is a great way to find some new recipes, especially during this pandemic that we're still seeing. But I keep saying there's no more COVID, so I hope it comes true soon. That's what I keep telling everybody. But I am always here for you. I also just want to talk before you start. We have not decided to do support groups virtually right now. Eventually they are talking about doing them in person. Right now, they just want me to stick with the bariatric cooking class. So anything you guys need, you can talk to me through here at the end of the class.
Thank you, Ashley. That's great. So we're going to begin. We're making 4 recipes today. I was 3 or 4 recipes today. The first is an egg white and red pepper bites. And these are really good. They do take some time, so we're going to start with those right away. The second is a peanut butter and chocolate chia pudding, which is tasty for breakfast or as a dessert. The third is our blender waffles recipe. I like these because you make them in a blender and then you just pour them in the waffle iron, so it's nice and easy. And the fourth is our pumpkin protein oatmeal dish. So we're going to begin with the eggs. So I have my egg whites here. I do have a little yolk that slipped in, but no big deal. I'm just going to show you quickly how I separate. Clearly, I didn't do a very good job with that last egg, but this is 4 and this would be the 5th. So you can do 4 or 5 egg whites. These eggs are kind of small, so I'm going to do 5 egg whites. So you crack, and then you can kind of go side to side with the eggshell. The only problem when you do this is that sometimes the yolk can get cut on the shell, and that's how you end up with a little bit in there. So another option is just to gently roll the yolk into your hand. It seems a little bit strange, but you can just gently do that to help discard the yolk. And you can use the yolk for a salad dressing or something else if you'd like. We're not going to use it today. We're making this recipe to be super healthy, super light, and of course, full of protein. So here are the egg whites. And we're gonna be using roasted red peppers. These are already bought, bought them in a jar. So you can just drain off any liquid, nice and easy. And we'll give these a rough chop. And we're gonna mix them with some spinach. And these are gonna go into ramekins and go into the oven. So this recipe, if you have the recipes and you're following along, it's really great to make these with a silicone dish. So it's like a silicone muffin pan because they pop right out really easily. I don't have that here, and you may not at home either. So what we're gonna be doing is we have this filled with our oiled ramekins, and then there's water in this dish as well. So either way, you're gonna be cooking these in water. So the water comes up, so I'll just take one out. The water comes up to about here on the ramekin, and then the ramekins just set into the water. So the reason we're doing this way is because egg whites can be really dry and sticky and just not really all that flavorful or tasty. But when you cook them this way, baked in the water, it actually it makes them super tender and moist, and they retain their, they just retain moisture much better than if you were to cook them in a different way. So I really like cooking them this way. They get really tender and yummy. So I'm just chopping up some spinach. Obviously, we're adding lots of veggies to our recipes whenever possible. So I have, this is baby spinach. I just washed it ahead of time, and I'm just giving it a nice chop. Get it nice and small so it'll fit into those ramekins. Take out, maybe there's a couple big stems. We can get rid of those. And then we're gonna add some shredded cheese as well. So we've got our veggies. This is our shredded jack cheese. You can also use cheddar, any kind of low-fat cheese if you prefer that, to keep it super low-fat. We'll mix this all together. And then I'm gonna put some of this into each ramekin and put the egg white, kind of pour the egg whites over it. Any questions about this?
I do have one question. Can you use liquid egg whites, like the ones that come in the carton?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep, that would be great. I just wanted to offer, the whole egg approach, because not everybody has the liquid egg whites, but most people have eggs in their fridge.
I'm just gonna say one thing. So everybody can have this on their regular diet. So after your month mark, you can start this. If you use a little bit less vegetables, you could use it in your Sage soft, moist, mushy food if you're there as well.
Great. Thank you, Ashley. That's great. Yeah, and I guess if you wanted to just do baked egg whites, I suppose you could probably leave the veggies out if you wanted. So I'm just gonna break up these egg whites a little bit so they'll be a little easier to pour. I'm gonna break up those protein strands. There we go. You can see it's kind of unwinding. That's what happens when you whisk them. Kind of unwind the strands, and then when you bake them, they kind of bake back together. All right, so I'm gonna pour this over, and we're gonna pop these in the oven. I'm just noticing I don't really have enough egg whites for all 7 of these. So maybe I'll just grab a few more eggs and add some more. All right, so we're making, I have, let's see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, I have 7 ramekins in there, and that was about 5 egg whites. So I guess we would say per ramekin, right? And we filled 3. So per ramekin probably has about 2 egg whites. If we have 3 more to do, that means we'll have about 6 to 7 more eggs to add in. All right, just add a few more. Any questions? So does anyone know how many grams of protein is in 1 egg? You guys are all protein masters, I'm sure.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
Okay. Could you use just egg or another vegan egg?
Oh, that's a really good question. I have not tried these. with the Just Egg product, but I don't see why not, since they're designed to be just like eggs, right?
Fair enough.
Presumably it should be okay.
Yeah, I
Okay,
would test
cool.
it out.
Thank you.
My other,
Yeah. Let
I
me
do-
know. I'm curious.
Yeah.
7 grams of protein.
Yeah, you got it. So the amount of protein sort of depends on the size of the egg, but yeah, generally it is about 6 to 7 grams of protein per egg. All right, perfect.
I have a couple questions, Emily. How big are the ramekins? What size are they?
They're small. They're like the 4-ounce ones.
Okay, and then about 8 eggs, you would say you just did?
Yeah.
Okay, and then can these be frozen in batches ahead of time?
No, they don't freeze well, unfortunately. I wish they did because they're really, really good and they take a while to bake, but it's worth it. All right. Any other questions?
Yep, one more, sorry. Are the
Yeah,
roasted
go
red
for it.
peppers packed in water or oil?
So the roasted red peppers, I believe, are packed in water, but either way, yeah, water. But either way, I just rinse them when they come out of the jar. Good questions, everybody. Thank you. Wow.
I know, we're getting a lot of questions tonight. This is great.
Yeah, it's great. All right. So we're going to jump to the next recipe. Hopefully everybody is ready while those are baking. I'm just going to flip my board to get us onto a cleaner surface. And I had, egg on that side. So here we go. And if you notice on my counter here, I have like a little slip mat so the board doesn't slip. So this is a great trick if you have a cutting board that's always sliding around. You can get like a little wet paper towel, or you can use like the slip mats that you buy at the hardware store, and you put them under your rugs, and then you can cut them to size. Obviously, don't put them under your rugs and then under your cutting boards. Keep them clean and just for the boards. All right. Other questions? We're going to jump to our second recipe, which is the chia pudding.
I just have one more question. How long do the eggs bake for?
So they bake for about 45 minutes, which is why I wanted to get those started right away. Because they do take some time to bake in the water. They bake at a low temperature too. They're like at 325. So they'll bake for a while, like 45 minutes to maybe even an hour. But I'll take them out so you guys can see them before we're done. Great. All right, so for this next recipe, we're going to be using a blender. In the blender, I've added 3 ingredients. The first is our chia seeds. So chia seeds are really high in fiber. They also contain omega-3 fatty acids, which are really helpful to our mind and heart. They contain some proteins, some minerals, and they're all around really, really good for us. It's not really the kind of thing that we used to see in our grocery store, but now they're everywhere. And it's best to break them up and blend them because they get so kind of slippery when they're exposed to moisture. So we're going to be adding some milk to this. And when you add a moisture to them, they get very, very slippery. So basically what that means is they might kind of go right through you instead of your body grabbing onto the nutrients. So what we're going to do is pop those seeds in the blender, kind of break them open, and turn them into a powder so that the body can fully absorb them and they don't just slide right through. So we have a couple other things in here. Any questions about chia seeds? I know that often people get a little confused. How do you use them? What do you do with them?
No questions so far.
Okay, great. And then 2 other things in here. One is our cocoa powder, not to be confused with hot chocolate powder, which has tons of sugar in it. This does not have any sugar in it. This is Dutch processed. So the difference between Dutch processed and regular cocoa powder, it has to do with how the chocolate is processed. That's why it says processed in there. So it's processed with an alkali. And you'll see it in the ingredient here. It says cocoa processed with alkali. So what that means is basically it transforms the cocoa from being kind of acidic and sharp to being smoother, rounder, more basic. And if you look at your acids and your bases, this is more basic than the acidic one, which is processed without an alkali, if that makes any sense to you guys. So it basically means in terms of flavor, it's just going to be like more brownie flavored, which is never a bad thing in my opinion. So not as sharp and like chocolate forward. All right, and the other thing we're adding in here, this is actually something, Ashley, that you introduced me to, which is the peanut butter powder. So this is peanut butter that has been basically pressed, and all of the oil and fat has been pressed out of it. So you're left with this really strong peanut taste, and it's just basically, if you were to imagine peanut butter without the oil in it, this is what it would look like. So it's a great source of protein, and it has that really nice, strong peanut flavor. All right, any questions about those?
I do have 2 questions.
Yeah.
So how can you buy them in powder form, the chia seeds? I don't
think you can. You can buy flax in powder form as like flax meal. You might be able to purchase it if you look for like chia seed meal, then like MEAL, like a meal. I think maybe then. I don't know though. That's a really good question. I usually just throw them in the blender and powder them myself. Oh, and the other thing about chia seeds, because they contain those omega-3 fatty acids, just like flax seeds, store them in the refrigerator or freezer to keep them shelf stable longer. Okay.
Okay. And then one more question or 2,
Yeah.
but I can answer the last one. Why is Dutch process so much more expensive and harder to find?
So I found this at ShopRite. So it wasn't that hard to find, I thought. It's probably more expensive because of the way that it's processed. So it takes more effort to make it, and therefore the labor cost is higher, and that's probably why it's more expensive.
Okay, and then I'm going to answer all 3 last questions because they're all about peanut butter powder. So PB2 is the same thing as peanut butter powder. It just has a little bit more protein in it, so you can get that at GNC. But I do recommend getting peanut butter powder, honestly, at Sam's Club or BJ's because they make a wholesale amount. You can get a big container of it. And it's really nice to cook with in your make with your protein shakes. I actually bought my powdered peanut butter at Home Goods. So you can really buy it anywhere. They sell powdered peanut butter at so many places now. So
this one came from ShopRite.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So they sell it everywhere. And it's in the peanut butter section. Sometimes it's in the natural food section as well.
Great. Is that all the questions?
That is it.
They were all about peanut butter. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So it's just a fun thing to play around with. You must like peanut butter in order to enjoy it though, because it's very strong peanut taste. And let's just grind this up until it's a powder. There we go. All right, kind of work those chia seeds down. So now everything is kind of blended, and you have a choice of milks here. You can use almond milk. I do have a can of coconut milk open, so obviously this is going to add much more fat than the almond milk, which is basically like 2 grams of fat per cup. So you could do half and half. I mean, you know what? Let's play around with it. Let's do half and half since we've got both. Almond, coconut, and I like to kind of use, just to make sure the liquid gets to the bottom, because the powder tends to kind of stay at the bottom otherwise. So just kind of give it a good, kind of hydrate it a little bit first. Okay. And then this goes right back into the blender, and we'll just blend it until it's nice and smooth. So you've got some options on this too. If you want, you can add a pinch of salt to add more. It kind of helps to bring out the flavor. You can also add vanilla extract. Vanilla extract goes really well with chocolate. It just kind of, again, heightens the flavor. And you can see it's quite sort of liquidy at this stage, but we're going to put it in the refrigerator for 15 to 20 minutes. That'll give the chia seeds some time to hydrate and absorb the liquid that we just added to them. So I'll pop this into the fridge while we get ready for our next recipe. Questions?
One question, can you add a sweetener like powdered Splenda?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. I was supposed to add a sweetener. It's been a long day. I was supposed to add a little bit of maple syrup, but you could definitely add, I think it'll actually be nice and sweet from the coconut milk because coconut milk has a nice sweetness. And the Dutch cocoa isn't so, again, is just not quite as sharp as the other kind of cocoa. But yeah, you definitely want to add, like, you could add Splenda, you could add like what are those called? The stevia drops. They have like vanilla stevia drops or things like that. I like those in this recipe. I also love, maple syrup, and that's why I tend to use that a lot. Honey would be fine as well if that's appropriate, for your diet. So yeah, any of those sweeteners would be good. What do you think, Ashley?
Yeah, so I am a huge fan of maple syrup, but stevia drops I've been telling a lot of people to get because you can add that into coffee, you can add it into so many things now, and they actually sell them everywhere. They sell a bunch of different flavors at Trader Joe's, I know, but you can, I really like the stevia drops, but Splenda if you want, that's fine, but you can do others as well.
Yeah, I generally recommend, sweeteners that are nature-based. So stevia comes from a plant. I know that, for myself, I know stevia has an aftertaste that's a little bitter, and that can be overwhelming for some folks. Another one to explore is monk fruit. If you're not familiar with monk fruit sweetener, that could be another one to check out. It's a 0-calorie sweetener that is it's a particular kind of fruit called monk fruit, and it's originated in Asia, and they mix it with, I think it's erythritol, which is a sugar alcohol, basically. So it's, again, 0-calorie sweetener that might be worth checking out.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Hello? Oh, sorry. I'm on the phone, so I can't see anything.
That's okay.
Could you use soy milk instead of coconut milk?
Sure, yeah. So this recipe, you can use any kind of milk of your preference. So soy milk, if that's what you choose, of course, that has added protein in it as well. So you're just bumping it up. So that would be great.
Okay, thank you.
And I think I just saw a question pop up there, Ashley. What did it say?
Yeah, I have 3 questions.
Okay.
What's the difference between regular cocoa and raw cocoa?
Okay, so raw cocoa has never been heated or treated. And then regular cocoa, okay, well, I think I should rephrase. There's cocoa and cacao. So cacao usually refers to cocoa in its raw form. And then cocoa refers to cacao that's been processed in some way.
Okay. And then he's asking if you can use agave as a sweetener, and yes, you can use agave as a sweetener.
Yeah.
And then someone just said an idea for the egg white recipe, which is a good idea. You could use spinach flakes. They do make dry spinach flakes, which might be easier to digest when you're on the soft, moist, mushy food instead of a raw
I love that. Yeah, I love that. That's a great idea.
Yep. And that's it.
And that's a nice way to add some nutrients. If you can't have the spinach yet, but you can add the spinach flakes. Great idea. All right. So our third recipe, I'm losing count over here. Our third recipe is the blender waffles. So for this one, I'm just gonna melt a little bit of coconut oil in the microwave and get that kind of melted down while I get everything else ready. So for this one, I'm gonna be using almond flour. So this stuff is really expensive, but it is just powdered almonds. That's why it's so expensive, because almonds are pricey. So the wonderful thing about this is that it's very high in protein and it's very low in carbs because it's a nut and it's not actually flour, even though it's called almond flour. Flour actually in the culinary sphere, it really just refers to the way in which something is processed. So you can have almond flour, you can have wheat flour, you can have all different kinds. As long as it is this texture, then it's a flour, basically. So we have our almond flour here. And again, because this is a nut, I keep it in the fridge or freezer just to prolong the shelf life again. All right, so everything goes right into the blender. I just gave it a little rinse. I'm gonna add I have some coconut milk for this, and I'm gonna add the coconut oil as well as soon as that's ready. Everything gets blended in except the eggs, because you don't want to over blend the eggs. You want to kind of just blend them in the last turn, because they will, oops, hold on. There we go. All right. If you blend eggs too much, then the protein strands will kind of unwind and it won't really hold your product together. So that's why we do this blending in 2 stages. So coconut milk, and again, if you want to use a different milk, feel free. We have our melted coconut oil. I love coconut flavor, so it's one of the reasons I like to include it. I have some vanilla extract and cinnamon right here. So the cinnamon, again, is just adding a nice flavor. You don't have to add it if you don't like cinnamon, but I love it. So we've got vanilla extract, cinnamon, coconut oil, coconut milk. Oh, let's not forget our honey. So I'm going to forget the sweetener again. About a tablespoon. So I'm just going to eyeball it so I don't have to get my spoon dirty. And then we'll add the flour and everything just gets blended down. You can add a couple spoonfuls of, water if needed, if it's too thick, but just wait because we're going to add the eggs, which are going to add a lot of moisture. So I have a waffle iron preheating over there. We kind of get this grinded up first. There we go.
I do have a few questions.
Go for it.
Are egg replacers okay for this?
Ooh, I have never made this dish with egg replacers. I suppose as long as it's, the equivalent of about 3 eggs, I suppose it should be fine. Are you talking about like just egg or something like that?
I'll have to ask her.
Okay.
And then next question, what can we use instead of coconut oil?
So instead of coconut oil, you could just use another, plant-based oil, grapeseed oil, avocado oil. Either of those would be fine.
Okay. And then she answered back something else to use as a binder instead of eggs. So
I see what you mean. You could probably do I haven't made these with like a flax egg, which is 1 tablespoon of ground flaxseed with 3 tablespoons of water mixed together to form a gel and set aside for 5 minutes. That's equivalent to 1 egg. I have not made this with that kind of flax egg before, so I'm not sure. So I think it could, but I really don't know because I haven't made this with that kind of a replacement.
Okay.
I'll have to test it out though.
Okay. And then last question, if you want a tablespoon of melted coconut oil, how much solid coconut oil would you use? Would it be the same amount? You just scoop your tablespoon in?
Yeah, more or less. So you don't have to be too exact with this recipe because it's just waffles, but it's more or less. I would say, if you take out a scoop of coconut oil and then you melt it, it might be a little bit less than when you scooped it, because when you scoop it, there's more air in it, so it's a little more volume. So do like 1 heaping tablespoon would equal 1 tablespoon of melted. Good question. All right, there goes the eggs. Perfect. So now I have my batter. I'm just going to kind of encourage this off the sides because, as we know, blenders like to do that. And maybe just give it 1 more whirl. So this is nice because, again, we're using almonds as the base instead of our flour, so adding lots of protein with the nuts. Give it 1 more. Perfect. All right. And of course, almonds are also high in fiber. They're high in monounsaturated fats. Another reasons we love them. Those are the heart healthy ones. They contain some vitamin E, some magnesium, and antioxidants, which can be really protective against oxidative stress, which is why they're called antioxidants. What else do I love about almonds? Well, they also taste great. So that's a good reason to use them too. So let's pop this back here since we're done with that. We'll bring over our waffle iron, which is heating up. This is my sister's waffle iron. Don't tell her I stole it from her house. All right. There we go, nice and hot. And you're just gonna wanna prepare it with a little bit of spray. So I have some Pam cooking spray today. You can throw a little coconut oil in there if you wanna keep the flavors consistent. And we're just gonna pour this into our preheated iron. I don't know if you guys can see over there, but be careful not to overflow the waffle iron. If you've never made waffles before, you know this is a common issue. You can pop some blueberries in there too. Just make sure that they're covered with the batter, because otherwise they'll kind of cook and stick to the top of your waffle iron. And it's hard to clean the waffle iron after that. Questions about that recipe?
I do have one more question. What about coconut? What about coconut flour? Is that good too for the waffles?
Ooh, okay, great question. Coconut flour is, oh my gosh, it's a tough flour to work with because it requires so much liquid. So for those of you that aren't familiar with coconut flour, it's basically dehydrated coconut and again made into a flour. It doesn't taste very strongly of coconut because it doesn't really have much oil or fat in it. So I would not use it for this recipe just because it requires so much liquid to really be good. In addition to that, coconut flour doesn't have protein. So one of the reasons I'm using the almond flour is to really emphasize the protein at breakfast time. So the almonds mixed with all those eggs makes for a really good protein-rich waffle. Yeah,
and protein
really
is
good.
Yeah, and protein is what everybody needs after bariatric surgery. So,
right.
Great. Speaking of coconut flour, one more question. Does that need to be refrigerated as well?
Coconut flour, yeah, I keep it in the fridge or freezer. Yeah. Okay. I keep most of my flours in the fridge or freezer. It just extends the shelf life.
This is good to know because I'm gonna go put my almond flour and stuff in the refrigerator.
Yeah, definitely. So what I would recommend, if you're tight on fridge and freezer space, put your flours in the fridge or freezer. Prioritize the months of like June, July, August, and September. Like those months when it's a little bit hotter in your kitchen. Heat and light is what kind of accelerates rancidity and products going bad. So if something is exposed to, like an oil is exposed to light, over time, the light will break down the oil and it'll basically oxidize and become not as good or unusable. If you've ever smelled a rancid oil, it smells really bad. So you don't want to use that. And then similarly with the flours, you may not be able to tell, but sometimes if you smell like a whole wheat flour or something like that, it just gets a little musty. I wouldn't say that this is necessary for like all-purpose flour, because all-purpose flour doesn't have any fiber or bran or anything in it that can really go bad. And yeah, so I leave my all-purpose flour out because there's nothing in there like that's gonna start to become rancid.
One more question. What is the serving size of this waffle?
Good question.
The gentleman asking is preoperatively. Yeah. So the guy asking is preoperatively, so you could eat as many as you want preoperatively. But post-operatively, I would say this whole waffle, once she takes it out, probably you're only going to be able to have you're probably not going to be able to even have the whole waffle. You're probably only going to be able to have like a quarter of it.
So it freezes really well. That's the other thing I wanted to mention. You can make these waffles, freeze them, and then just pop them into your toaster oven or something, toaster or oven to heat them up. So feel free to do that as well. That's
I
good.
like that idea. And
Yay,
Jennifer,
piece of food.
Jennifer was taking my words out of my mouth because they have a mini waffle maker.
Oh, cute.
Target has been making mini waffle makers. They're like 10, she's saying $10, but they've been making them for every holiday. And I've been wanting to get one. They have like a rabbit one right now for Easter, but they have little mini waffle makers. So that would be perfect for you guys to do this,
Yeah.
have a smaller waffle for one serving.
Yeah,
Great
that's a super cute idea. Yeah. Or if you've already got the big one, just make a big one and then break it up into 4 pieces, and there are your mini waffles. So, yeah, awesome. All right, so our final recipe is super simple. It is 1/3 cup of oats. So these are rolled oats. And then I have some spices in this little bowl already. I have a mix of cinnamon and ground ginger. So these are my pumpkin pie oats. Whenever I'm craving pumpkin pie, but I don't want to have all of the sugar and stuff that goes with that. So just mixing the oats with canned pumpkin puree. And you can mix that up. You can add your sweetener of choice. So about a teaspoon or so. Let's not forget our maple syrup this time. Oops, that came out faster than I wanted to. So mix that up. And then we're going to microwave this for about a minute or so, 1 to 2 minutes. Make sure you get all your spices mixed in there. So microwave this for about 1 to 2 minutes. And then we'll add the cottage cheese and microwave it again. So it's a 2-step microwave process. So this one's really super simple. The oats, of course, oats are high in protein. They're high in soluble fiber. The type of fiber in oats is called beta-glucan, which is a really remarkable fiber because it leads to slower digestion and it helps to keep you full. Obviously, many of you know that. But specifically the beta-glucan, it helps to lower your blood sugar or stabilize your blood sugar and helps to lower cholesterol, which is why on packages of oats, you always see like lowers cholesterol, heart healthy, because of this specific kind of fiber that's really important for heart health. So, and then we're gonna add some cottage cheese. We have some low-fat cottage cheese. I like these little containers, they're really handy. 1 cup of low-fat cottage cheese has 28 grams of protein, which is amazing. This is this is 4 ounces, which is equivalent to half a cup. So in this one, there's 10 grams of protein. So you're getting lots of protein in this as well. And then let's check on that. Good.
I do have 2 questions.
Go for it.
Can you what can you substitute for pumpkin?
Oh boy.
And then,
maybe a mashed banana?
Yeah, that actually sounds good. The other question, what can you substitute for cottage cheese?
Okay. So there are 3 ingredients in this recipe: cottage cheese, oats, and pumpkin. So you guys are really challenging me. So I guess instead of the pumpkin, I suppose you could use, this is half a cup of canned pumpkin, so you could do a mashed banana if you wanted. That would give it a totally different flavor. And then instead of cottage cheese, gosh, I don't know. I guess maybe some yogurt. You could just try like the Greek yogurt. That could work. I like the cottage cheese because it has a really nice texture and it's not as sour as yogurt. It's a little bit sweeter in flavor than the yogurt is. So I'm going to mix this up and then put this back in the microwave for another minute or so.
I also think a lot of people don't like cottage cheese by themselves because of the texture, but putting it with the oats and the oatmeal, it's going to kind of be the same texture, so you won't even notice. That's what I think. But you can do, I would recommend like plain Greek yogurt or even vanilla, like the low-fat vanilla Greek yogurt. You could do to add extra.
That's a good idea. I like that. As long as it doesn't have too much sugar added to it. So of course that's the issue with the flavored yogurts is there's often, because they're low fat and they have a flavor in them, they are often add a lot of sugar to them as well. I'm not a huge cottage cheese fan. This is kind of the only way that I will eat it. So so I can relate.
Yeah, I love cottage cheese, but I like it with fruit, and a lot of people can't have fruit for 3 months in this class. So, this is a good way to put it with something else because most people are trying to use it, with chives or something savory. So this is more of a sweeter way. So I really like this idea.
Awesome.
Any other questions? That's it so far. I also want to just backtrack for each recipe. So I did talk about the eggs. So the eggs you can do at stage 2, soft, moist, mushy, if you have a little bit less vegetables. And then I did have one question about that. How do you know that the eggs are baked and ready? Like, I know we said 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
What do they look like?
So I'll take them out and show them to you guys before we end today. So I'll show you exactly what you're looking for.
Okay. And then next question, or next thing I want to talk about is after the other recipes. So the waffle recipe you can have once you get to stage 3, which is your regular solid food after your month mark. This is a great alternative. I know we're always looking for different breakfast ideas because most people are just having eggs and protein shakes, pretty boring. So these are really great variety. And then same thing with the pumpkin oats. You can have that when you start your soft, moist, mushy. You can even start that if you wanted to as well, because you can have oats in moderation when you're on soft, moist, mushy. The pudding and the pudding she's taking out, you can have that on soft, moist, mushy as well. Has a lot of protein in it. As long as you're adding that protein powder, that looks so good. As long as you're putting the PB2 has protein in it, that's great. The more protein you have, just the overall feeling of fullness you're going to have, less fatigue you're going to have. So that's a big, big thing after.
And I just want to show you guys how the texture of this has changed. So you can see, right? It's like spoonable now, whereas before it was runny when we poured it into the ramekins. So this is perfect. This is exactly the texture we wanted, just that like nice pudding consistency. And that's what happens when chia seeds are blended with water. At first it'll be runny, but over time those chia seeds will absorb the liquid and make this really nice texture. I even think the chia seed pudding could be interesting, like combined with oats maybe and microwaved, and I don't know, maybe that's another recipe for another class. Thinking ahead.
Yeah, but that looks awesome. I love pudding, so it looks awesome. And then the other thing I was thinking you could just, if you wanted to add more protein to your waffle, a lot of people put peanut butter on it, so you could do that as well.
Or almond butter.
Or almond butter, just gives you a different way to get more protein.
Or yogurt on top. I often love to put like Greek yogurt on top of pancakes and waffles and things like that. Tastes so good.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
All right, we have just a few minutes here, so I'm just going to pull these out so you can see them.
I think this is the most recipes we've done for a class.
I'm loving it. Super ambitious.
It's making me so hungry because I love breakfast. So
this is going to be a little hard to show, but basically with these, because they are, let me see, maybe I can grab them with the tongs. So what I'm looking for is that the egg whites are completely set. So they should be like, come here, you little eggy creature. All right. They should be completely set in the middle. I don't know if you can see this, but right here, there's still like a little bit of an egg white, kind of like that jelly egg white. So you want it to be completely set. And that's how you'll know when they're done, when you kind of poke them and there's no kind of like egg white movement. It's just completely set. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, completely solid. That looks.
Yeah, like it's not wiggling around.
This is gross, but not like snotty looking.
Thank you. I wasn't gonna say it, but
I feel like we're okay, but not like that because I hate when eggs are like that. So
same. No snotty eggs here.
No snotty eggs. Do we have any more questions? Any questions that don't have to deal with any of these recipes? You guys can ask me now. I'm here for you guys if you have any questions besides the recipes about bariatric surgery or anything bariatric wise.
Yeah, actually, if you'd like, I can spotlight you.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Just want to see if anybody, you can unmute yourself if you have questions or put them into the chat. This is the best we can do for a support group right now. It's really hard. I know that I just also wanted to tell you guys that New York Bariatric Group is also doing an online support group with their psychiatrist. So you can always do that as well until we start. I'm hoping to get the go ahead to do in-person support groups once the COVID dies down a little. Thankfully, crossing our fingers, we are pretty much at like 5% in our hospital. We're really, really low with COVID cases. So it's amazing news because I haven't seen below, I think, 10 COVID patients since last March, so a year ago. So I'm hoping that eventually we can meet back in person. Right now, I can't do a virtual support group. This is what I'm offering you guys for now, which is really helpful. So thank you to Emily who puts this together for us. It's really, really, it's really, really great.
For our future programs, we're going to probably do another one in May. If that works for you, Ashley, I'll reach out to you with a few more dates.
Yeah, perfect.
We can do, and if you guys have a specific topic or something in mind that you think is, you want to learn more about, put it into the chat. Let Ashley know. We're always trying to create our classes based on what your needs are. We really want to serve you to the best of our ability.
Yes, and I just have one closing thing before we end, because I know this class ends at 6:15. Someone just asked about oats. I thought we have to wait for carbs until later on. So you can have cook and serve oats at your soft, moist, mushy stage. So you are allowed to have that, but in moderation. So not every single day. You can have it, maybe once or twice a week. All right.
Great.
Any other questions? Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I miss all of you. I've been looking at everybody's picture and being like, I miss everybody from my support group. But thank you guys for joining. It really means a lot to both Emily and I.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time.